Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, um, dear participants from around the globe,
Good.
my name is Wael Al-Haj Yassin. I'm Associate Professor at Qatar Transportation and Traffic Safety Center and the Chair of the Traffic Safety Analysis and Policy Special Interest Group in the World Conference on Transport Research Society. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all on our webinar today, which entitled Global Trends on the Status of Traffic Safety under the COVID-19. This webinar aims at addressing two important questions. The first question is, what is the potential or possible impacts of COVID-19 on the safety status worldwide? What kind of potential influences we could have on the safety, and whether there is a need for a different or interventions or policies to be implemented during this period. The second important questions to be addressed is, what are the achievements of the last 10 years, decade of actions on traffic safety, started in 2011 to 2020? What are the achievements, what are the challenges, and how this will lead to the next action, decade of action, 2020-2030. Before I start introducing our distinguished presenters who will be trying together to address these questions, please allow me to introduce Dr. Mohammad Qaradawi, the Director of Qatar Transportation and Traffic Safety Center, who will be addressing us with a welcoming remarks. Dr. Mohammad, the floor is yours.
Yes, I have it. Hello, everyone. Dear distinguished presenters, Brigadier Engineer Mohammed Al-Malki, General Secretary, National Traffic Safety Committee, Government of Qatar, Dr. Meliski Kayisi, Technical Officer, World Health Organization, Susanna Zamataro, Director General, International Road Federation, Professor Gitan Tuwari, Chair Professor, Transportation Research and Injury Prevention Program and Civil Engineering Department in the Indian Institute of Technology. My apologies if I mispronounce any of your names. Dear participants from around the globe, good day wherever you are. I would like to welcome you all in this webinar to address a very important issue, that is safety, traffic safety, which has recently gotten out of the spotlight during the current global crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. Still, we are losing many lives on our roads, which drains our resources and lead to severe social and economical impacts. Therefore, we need to continue working together to improve the safety on our roads. Qatar Transportation and Traffic Safety Center at Qatar University is a unique academic unit in the Arab world and the Gulf region as well. It bridges the gap between the academics and researchers together with authorities and industries in order to identify innovative and effective solutions to road safety issues in the state of Qatar. We were successful in establishing strong partnerships with National Traffic Safety Committee, the General Director of Directorate of Traffic, the Ministry of Transport and Communication, as well as many other governmental authorities. The center is a main stakeholder in the National Traffic Safety Strategy of 2013 up to 2022. On the other hand, the center has joined effort with different international associations and organizations, such as International Road Federations and World Conference on Transport Research Society, and many others, to contribute on the regional and international level towards safety of roads. Finally, I would like to welcome you again and wish you a successful events. Back to you, Dr. Wael.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. We move now to our presenters. This webinar is organized by Qatar Transportation Center, co-organized by Qatar Transportation Center, as well as the National Traffic Safety Committee of the State of Qatar, as well as the International Road Federation and the World Conference on Transport Research Society. So there's a global dimensions. We're trying to bring all experts to talk about the impacts on road safety. And we will start with our first presenter, Brigadier Mohammed Al-Malki, the Secretary General of the National Traffic Safety Strategy, the National Traffic Safety Committee of the State of Qatar. Brigadier Mohammed Al-Malki, he has a 35 years experience on road planning, traffic engineering, and road safety. And as well as he is the representative of the National Traffic Safety Committee of Qatar in the UN Road Safety Collaboration since 2016. Brigadier Al-Malki, the floor is yours. You can share your presentation and start.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for this opportunity to give a full, after so many months now, almost everywhere. Is it clear, Doctor? What happened? Hello?
Yes, excellent. Yes, excellent. You just share it, share the slides. Yes, and yes, slide mode.
Yeah. Anyway, well, if everyone can hear me now, is it clear?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you. Yes, please.
Okay, just I think we have just little, yeah. Yeah, hello everyone again, and I hope this opportunity to give a brief of what is happening in Qatar, and also not compare, but to see in a global wise, you know, by following up road safety matters and this pandemic COVID-19 all over the world. Actually, I've been, you know, looking at numbers, and of course, if I say the numbers in Qatar or in the Middle East or in the whole world are really, of course, I can say from 1st January, I will follow just brief, and then I will continue my presentation. It's not actually a presentation, just brief of what is happening in Qatar regarding our achievement and our national strategy. But in general, I believe like from January till June, the whole world are really, you know, I mean, the situation of road movement and transportation everywhere, almost 50, I don't know, but I can say 50% stop, you know, like going to school, going to work, going, some countries locked down. But here in Qatar, we did not lock down. The whole movement was, you know, for the first 3 months was almost 100%, but with caution. So I believe what we did here in Qatar. I will start with numbers later on, but now, so far, I will just give a brief of our National Traffic Safety Committee and the achievement, and what is our goals since the first phase of the national strategy and second phase, and the challenge for the next 2 years until 2022, which will be the end of 10 years Qatar national strategy from 2013 till 2022. So let me start. Just I'll go fast because I like to speak more about numbers and statistics and what is happening lately in Qatar. I'll just go, of course, I'll give a brief and summary. Qatar is unique in road safety management in the Middle East and amongst developing nations. National Traffic Safety Committee is the lead agency chaired by His Excellency the Prime Minister, with the membership of United Nations Road Safety Collaboration Team. Qatar has achieved significant fatality reduction towards Qatar Vision 2030 and FIFA 2022 with its initiative and bespoke safe system and the new monitoring and evaluation and the commitment to the United Nations action plan. So I'll just give a brief also about the unique bespoke safe system, road safety management in Qatar. Is everyone there or? Hello? Doctor, what happened?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed, but we cannot see the slides. So can you just make the show mode and then next just place the...
I don't know. I have here my doctor's.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is like actually we started with the 6 component of this at the beginning, but now, of course, as you see, the 31 elements, which is really we concentrated in this unique bespoke safe system in Qatar. I will not explain any more of this because it's the aim of this the improvement road safety through reducing fatalities to 6 fatalities per 100,000, which is this was the target when we started our national strategy 2013, and after, of course, we reached this number before we end even the middle of the first phase of the strategy. Of course, we now the number we can see in 2019 we reached almost 4.9 fatalities per 100,000. Of course, with all the challenge we faced for the last 5 or 7 years since Qatar won the file of hosting World Cup. With all the road works and with the increasing number of population and the length of new roads, it's like a big workshop for the last 5 years. We still bring down the number below 6, which is supposed to be, this is the target of the national strategy after 10 years.
Brigadier Malki, can you move? I think the slides are not moving. Are you moving the slides, or it is still the same?
No, same one. Now, okay. This is second one, but because I'm not following up the slides, I'm just talking. I'm adding things from my information. We'll go back to this. As I said, the statistics and fatalities in Qatar. Up to now, it was since the corona crisis started until June, we have a number of fatalities. You can say it's 58 up to from January to June. But this is, of course, this number is, I can say because people are really they are moving, the movement and the transportation in Qatar never stopped, and there was no lockdown, and but still, of course, during winter always a number of fatalities of young drivers and pedestrian are little high, but this year from January to June now the number is 58. I will talk about these numbers like since 2 months now, second phase of opening the little bit of the activity, and this month also the movement of pedestrian and opening the school. So the movement back again to Qatar for, as you can say, full operation in our roads. So it is almost, you can say, almost 50% of the fatalities if we compare it to last year and the year before. But we are still reaching the target for 2022 is supposed to be, as you can see, 130 fatalities 2022. But now last year we almost we have 154 fatalities, and from January this year also the number of pedestrian, which is the second big number. Every year we have pedestrian. You can say 35% of fatalities, our fatalities are young drivers and pedestrian. But this year we have almost like 19 pedestrian death since January till June. This is just brief of how COVID and how the movement in Qatar reduced by almost, I can say, 50%, and maybe a little bit more. But we in our supervision of the implementation for all action plan with our stakeholders, it's all done by, following up by remote with all the 33 stakeholders, partner and members in the national committee, and also followed by the small teams following up the accident and following up the action plan. So I'll go this the next page. Also, something wrong here. It's not moving. Anyway, let me continue with the also fatality comparison 2018, 19, and 20. You can see the numbers here. Of course, I hope by end of this year, I mean, actually, we need to do more study, and I hope with the Qatar University and the Transportation Center, there we can also make research. And of course, it's not because COVID. Also, what's the reason of also reducing number of young drivers, fatalities, pedestrian, and other passengers? There is also a big reduce of passengers and also high injuries, also been reduced almost 60%. And these numbers actually now we are really is it we are asking ourselves, is it because of the COVID-19 crisis, or of course people are more caution, and they really care about, and of course the law enforcement also, I mean, for the last since maybe March and April and May and June, of course we have many traffic police and some other police forces in the roads, checking for ihtiraz and checking for people are wearing masks and, just cautions because of COVID-19. So people always having their safety belt and having, of course, some people are not using their mobile in the car. So I think there is so many reasons involved in this. So I hope I'm not taking more times in this. Again, not moving this one.
I will be thankful if you can, summarize in 1 minute. We'll be thankful for you.
1 minute? Why you?
2 minutes? Okay. Okay. 2 minutes.
Anyway, I'll finalize it now. What we are doing actually, I asked yesterday if we can get a global number and statistics of the countries, which they, of course, I'm sure it's almost not zero, but I'm sure the countries which lock down for still lock down also the car movement and of course in general fatalities, car accident. But the last numbers I've seen almost 700,000 globally up to June, which is, I believe, it's a big number also global wise. I think from WHO should also consider this number, because almost half of what we have, like 1.3 million fatalities all over the world. Also number of high injuries, which is 50 million. I don't know. I did not check that number, but I asked yesterday if somebody can give us brief about this statistics. Anyway, we'll go again. This is general about our stakeholder and sharing current traffic accidents. and all our stakeholders are updating us, the national strategy and the road safety office, following up all the action plan up to now. So I hope by the end of this year, I think we can give a brief also, because the life will be open again here in Qatar. It is open, but we are watching all the school zones. Of course, the number of cars around the school are being reduced really after the Ministry of Education decided to have only 30% of the school, which is normally we have around over 150,000 students. So this is since 1 month now, the life again in the school, and also life in general transportation. So we will, really watch these numbers and why they've been increased little by, you can say, from June up to 1st of October. I think the number also been little bit increased because the movement back again to in Qatar. So I hope I'm doing fine with. Of course, this is some achievement which Qatar National Committee Global Awards, International Road, the Prince Michael Award and Site Awards. So this is almost what I have, and I hope we can discuss more things later on in our conference.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brigadier Malki, for the very well informative presentation and the overview of Qatar achievements, which was remarkable and internationally being recognized during the last 10 years. Before I move to the next presenter, just a small question, please. One of the most important challenges that most of the countries, especially in the developing countries, are facing in order to improve their road safety situation, is to build a multisectoral, multi-organizational collaboration for implementing different strategies and to follow up the progress and to measure the impact. How Qatar was successful in doing that and reaching to the achievement of the target of the strategy even 3-4 years before the end of the strategy?
We started 2012, like we started before building up our strategy. I can say we got the best practice of consultants and stakeholder from Qatar. I believe the 6 committees, which include engineering, rescue, education, law enforcement. Really, when we started 200 action plan for the first phase and for the first 5 years, actually the implementation and following up action plan with all the stakeholders, this really, I believe, one of the success we made in Qatar, and give us also a big help to follow up the second phase, which is almost now we have 2 years left for. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brigadier Malki. We will look forward for more questions in the question and answer session. Now, please allow me to move to the next presenter, Dr. Melski Khaisi, Technical Officer in the World Health Organization. Dr. Melski joined WHO since 2012, and he has also an 11 years experience as a lecturer at Kenyatta University in Kenya. Dr. Melski, the floor is yours. You can share your slides and start.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Wael, for the introduction. Yes, I'm just getting my slides. Yes, my focus of my talk is on achievements during the decade of action for road safety, 2011 to 2020. As most of you are aware, in March 2010, the UN General Assembly proclaimed a decade of action for road safety. The goal was to stabilize and then reduce the forecast level of road traffic fatalities around the world. That means really substantial reduction. We had a global plan that was developed to guide this action. It focused on 5 key areas, which are characterized as pillars. These are road safety management, safer roads and mobility, safer vehicles, safer road users, and post-crash response. There are a number of details, activities, interventions, and processes that are described fully under each of these pillars, and it was expected that countries would utilize this global plan to prepare and trigger their own actions, and also organize the road safety work, whether it's at the policy level, or the management, or very specific interventions. As we come to the end of the decade, a question is whether what has been realized, what are the achievements, and what's the implication of what has been achieved for the next decade of action. A question that I'm sure comes to the mind of all the participants is this: was the target in the reduction of fatalities realized? I'll dwell on this for the next couple of minutes, about 3 minutes, to point out that at the point, this is 2011, when the road traffic, when the decade of action started, we were at 1.25 million deaths globally. These are the number of people who were killed. And if you go by stabilizing, the idea of stabilizing, as you can see from the absolute numbers, the blue line, there's some stability, plateauing that is occurring. From the estimates at that time, the road traffic fatalities were projected to reach 1.9 million by the year 2020. The estimate or the analysis from the Global Status Report shows us that in the year 2016, we had about 1.35 million. So you can see from that analysis, the figure, we've not hit the 1.9 million, but we are at 1.35. Further analysis, which is found, for example, in the Global Status Report, there has also been substantial reanalysis of the data by an evaluation group led by Dr. Maggie Peden, relooking at the data and thoroughly scrutinizing it. And they come to more or less the same conclusion as I'm pointing out, is that there is some plateauing occurring across the world, except in low and middle income countries. So if you compare the figures, for instance, the high income countries have plateaued at about 8.5, 8.3, 7.9 for the years 2013, 2016, and 2015. But when you look at the low-income countries, the figures remain at 20.5, 26.7, 28.2. These are road traffic deaths per 100,000 for respectively for 2010, 2013, 2016. And then the middle-income countries have plateaued at about 17.4, 17.7, and 17.6. And so in total, if you look at these 3 sets of years, 2010 as the baseline, 2013 and 2016, globally, we are looking at 15.5, 16.4 and 16.2. So generally, you can see some plateauing. However, in terms of the absolute figures, idea, the estimate was to about 900,000 deaths, but we are at about 1.35. Now, let me add in another target that was set by the SDG. Target was to reduce the death by 50% by 2020. If we had gone to this, it means that by 2020 we should be having an absolute figure of 650,000 deaths. So you can see absolute numbers have not been reached. But then in terms of plateauing, there is an emerging trend, and then the substantial reduction in terms of now bringing it down. We've not reached there, and it tallies with what Brigadier Al-Malki has pointed out, to really look at the detailed analysis in each country. This should not discourage us, because there have been other very significant achievements during the decade. And I think we need to look at this as important foundational work. I'll move to the next slide so that it summarizes all these achievements, and thanks a lot, this is part of the work, the evaluation work that is being led by Dr. Maggie Piden, summarizing the timeline and various achievements. So I'll highlight just three, because I need to move to the conclusion. Is we've had 2 ministerial conferences on road safety, 2015 in Brazil and the recently concluded one in Sweden. We've had the UN General Secretary appointing a special envoy for road safety, which means this is a priority on the global agenda. We've also had the Sustainable Development Goals, which have included a target on road safety and an additional one on sustainable mobility. Compare this to what we had in the Millennium Development Goals that didn't have a target either on transport or on road safety. We've also had donors who've joined the work and provided additional funding. We think of Bloomberg, Portner, and other donors. And just recently, we've had the UN General Assembly Resolution 74-290. Foundational work. And in addition, we have had a number of countries that have prepared national plans of actions or national strategies and implemented.
Dr. Mileski,
Yes.
there are some voices from your place, I think, coming, disturbing.
Not from my voice, it's sent somewhere. I don't know, it's coming from, not from my side. I'm actually alone in the house.
注册，懂的都懂，不懂的说了也不懂。那不要干活了。学姐给我发的我还没回她呢。你说我不会行吗
Hello?
真行。啊？你咋不说了
Can you please unmute your microphone, please?
So maybe we move to the next presenter. I guess Dr. Mileski is. Okay. Dr. Mileski, please continue with your presentation. It's fine. We will now. I think that it's very strange. We don't know what's happening.
这都看出来了，
你他妈还能买这东西吗？
靠人掉了。
平时你也不会整这东西。
We apologize for this. We are just figuring out what happens with this kind of interference with the whole webinar.
I called what are you asking?
我不会真浴血战神了吧？
我他不能吗？他他妈这样我就不给他出了，我操！我他妈
不给他啥？
我他妈不给他出战友了，还要真浴血战神？这他妈的行吗？这样？
不是浴血战神有点过分了。
行吗？这样没事吗？
啊？
这样有事吗？
浴血战神啊？容易生病。
I think this,
浴血战神我有点过分了，你不至于这么那啥吧？
哎呦，这他妈我也拼的惨了。
hear you anymore.
我操老逼也不小啊！成天鸡巴撞击撞击，成天他妈撞撞撞。啊！
我他娘，我能怎么办？我也不想犯皮影。我是今天晚上检查。
哪来的？
我这他妈乱。
好像都他妈查完了。
谁？
好像都他妈查完了。
谁说的？
抽查。我他妈下楼的时候就听人朋友说查完了。
咱没查完呢。
我觉得这没人查呀。
Anything hacked?
I think, dear colleagues, we are hacked somehow. So we are trying now to get out of this voice, to get back to our webinar. Just please bear a few minutes with us to get everything on place.
我今天没洗澡呢。
嗯。那你今天又没洗澡？
那邓明呢？
我明天回家了，你等我来。
我靠，那秒！
Meanwhile, please allow me to run the poll. We have a poll. It contains 3 simple questions. We would like everyone to share his opinions, his thoughts about the conditions or the status of traffic safety during the COVID-19. We will run now the questions and please answer them. Thank you.
玩这个游戏怎么打5局的那个？
这咋回事？
你们已经不投票了
啊
我觉得挺不逗的。
啊！
我感觉挺他妈逗的。
对。
So there is 2 minutes left for the poll, please. If you did not complete it, then it will be stopped.
Are you ready?
3号。
靠能量按重启一下。按电脑有点小问题。
Okay, Dr. Melsky, I think hopefully it is solved. Our colleagues from the IT department, they're saying now they are working on this issue. So Dr. Melsky, maybe you can summarize quickly in 1 minute your presentation, please. Dr. Melsky?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks. So I'll quickly summarize. The expected substantial reduction in road traffic fatalities global has not been realized. However, we can see a plateauing globally and by regions. Secondly, we've had important foundational processes, road safety being included in the SDG targets, the appointment of the Special Envoy for Road Safety. We've had 2 ministerial conferences, which are crucial. We've had action by countries that have prepared plans of actions and implemented, really pushed on the road safety plans. In conclusion, we have a second decade of action that has recently been proclaimed. And I leave us with this question. How are we going to use this second decade in our countries, in our institutions, and in our road safety policy networks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We apologize for this disturbance, although it's out of our control for your presentation, but indeed we will have a lot of questions to be addressed during the Q&A session. Now we move to the next presenter, Mrs. Susanna Zamataro, the Director General of the International Road Federation. Mrs. Susanna Zamataro, she's one of the leading personnel in road safety, and she's involved in a lot of committees and a lot of organizations in order to promote road safety worldwide. And also she was named as one of the 40 most remarkable women in transport by TUMI. So the floor is yours, Susanna. You can share your slides and start your presentation.
Very much, Bahel. I think we're still having this problem with the.
Stopped for a while and then came back.
Yeah. And
our team, I'm in the IT department, so our team are working now to see from where is the interference coming.
Yes. Can you allow me to share my screen?
对，我上谁呀？我他妈上不去了。我操，为啥我上不去了？
I cannot hear you because they muted you. Yes, now.
Can you hear me now and see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you.
Fantastic. And ni hao to the Chinese people who are making our life very difficult this afternoon. Please mute your microphone if you hear us. Well, a warm welcome to everybody, despite these disruptions, and I will speaking loud to overcome the noise in the background. Thank you for the invitation and for Qatar University and the Traffic Safety Center for taking the initiative of organizing this webinar that we're very pleased to support today, and it's part of, as you know, that IFF and Qatar University have signed an MOU. This is part of our joint activities. 2 words for those of you who are connected and might not be familiar with who the IFF or what the IFF does and who we are. We are a globally independent, not-for-profit organization. We're based in Geneva. We're born in 1948, so quite an old lady, but very active. We've been working very closely with the United Nations since 1951, and we have basically assisting both the public sector and the private sector, but also working very closely with academia, like we do with the Qatar University and many of the research centers who are also part of our membership, and organize a number of activities around 3 main strategic pillars. You see them displayed on the slide: knowledge transfer and expertise sharing, combinations, building connections, really instigating, fostering partnerships between different organizations and creating those connections, and of course our work at policy and advocacy level. We're pleased to be part of the United Nations Road Safety Collaboration Group. I hope I'm shouting enough to be able to cover this. Now, in terms of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on our transportation, I think they're very clear and evident to everyone right now. Markey and others were saying, as soon as lockdowns have come into place, they have impacted dramatically our lives, but impacted dramatically as well globally our transportation systems. Also because transportation was seen as, of course, a potential means which the virus could have spread. And in the picture that you see in the background of this slide, it gives you a sense of the impact that the crisis and the pandemic has had, for example, on aviation, but also rail and roads, of course. Let me try to move forward. Here I'm using this graphic, which is taken from a piece of work that SlowCAD, another partnership which IFF is part of. It's a preliminary study they did in order to assess the impacts of COVID and the pandemic on transportation system, and visually gives you immediately a sense of what happened. Right, this graphic shows the mobility to public transport stations by region and by income group in the different parts of the and you see immediately the shift that we have seen starting from beginning of March all over the world. Now, in terms of shared mobility, here the impact, of course, has been one extreme to the other. So from the moment that people start being scared of taking public transport for fear of getting the virus, there was a massive increase in the use of the Uber, Didi, all those shared mobility services that have been over the years. Others to the other extreme, stop and stand still, like carpooling, right? Because you would find yourself in a closed environment with other people. So here we have from one extreme to the other. Oh, these people are being louder than me now. The other big impact, and that is also quite evident now to everybody, what is happening in many cities and many metropolitan areas around the world. We've seen space reallocation. We have been starting using spaces differently all around us and including within the cities. Of what you see displayed here, it's taken from a very interesting piece of work that has been delivered by the International Transport Forum in this
Susanna, just one sec, please. Susanna, just one sec, please.
And I can say that when discussing the potential.
Go ahead, Susanna.
Yes. It shows you the large-scale street space reallocation that has happened in Bogota, Brussels, and Ile-de-France. Moving forward now, what has been the consequences of all these lockdowns and street reallocation and using spaces differently and people moving differently now? And I'm using here this graph, which has been, it's extrapolated from a report that has, most of you probably are familiar with, which has been produced by the European Transportation Center. It's the PIN report. The name is the left top corner that you see. So the name of the report is The Impact of COVID-19 Lockdowns on Road Death in April 2020. Now, what these graphs do, with all this memory of the case that you see on the left-hand side on this column, it basically gives us a sense of the percentage of change in road death in April 2020 compared to road death in on average in the 3 years 2017-2019, and the corresponding percentage change in traffic volume. And what this graph tells us, and the report, the preliminary conclusion that report made on the basis of this very preliminary data that have been made available, is that we have seen roughly on average a 36 reduction, a drop on average in road death in the EU 25 countries. Now you have to take quite with a pinch of salt what we're saying here. We'll come back to that in a few seconds, because again, and I want to underline this, these are preliminary data, and as Brigadier Al-Malki was rightly pointing out, we need to dig a little bit more and get more data and study them more very, very closely to get a sense of really what has happened. On the basis of the data that the PIN report has made available and were available, we see that the highest reductions in road death was 84%, was actually recorded in Italy, then followed by Belgium, Spain, France, and Greece with over 59 degrees. Now, if we, let me move this, if we take a closer look and some warnings that that report itself points out, you have to be very careful, because what we notice is that the death did not decline by the same degree as traffic volume, right? It's clear that, of course, having less cars and people moving has had some impact, but the correlation has not been so far, or has not proved to be so far as straightforward as we may think. Some of the data that we have available, and again, I'm saying that here we have to take this with a lot of cautiousness, is one of the reasons that we see an increase in certain places of severity of accidents and sometimes number of accidents. Also because we have been having a higher number of vulnerable road users moving around unprotected infrastructure. Maybe I should just go back 1 second, if I may. this is not going back. But in the previous slide, you saw that there were some countries which were surprisingly, in a way, actually this dramatic drop in road deaths, actually they remained stable, if not a little bit higher than compared to the April 3 years average that we have been analyzing. And surprisingly enough, these were countries like Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands. So here again, we need to study a little bit more to understand what has happened. Now, one of the immediate thought could be, okay, these are the countries that actually were implementing less stringent type of lockdowns, so there were more people going around. The truth is that we still don't know. Another thing that we notice, and that was flagged out from the report and comes out from the data have been made available. We don't necessarily have a clear breakdown of data by type of vehicle, but when those data were available, in the case of Spain, for example, Spain registered quite a significant increase in the number of deaths of drivers of heavy good vehicles. And one of the explanations could also be that these people were working longer hours, and some of the countries, because of the emergency, had also lifted some of the requirements and the regulations that we have in place in that respect. Other studies that I was looking at in preparing this have also made reference to a bit of an abusing of use of mobile phone during those months, and also again, like the speeding, it's the idea that there are less people around, and it's like we let ourselves go a little bit. Now, if we look at the future now and where we stand, actually, it's not even the future, it's taking a stock from what has happened and where we are now and where we need to go. Carpe diem is really the word that should resonate with all of us. We all know that a tremendous amount of money being put in those stimulus packages to stimulate and relaunch the economies of many countries in the world. And this is actually a great opportunity to rethink mobility and priorities. I think it was mentioned by some of the other speakers. Very often we have practice systems and design system for cars and not for people. So I think what this pandemic has made clear is that we need to people back at the center of the picture. Let me try and move forward a little bit faster. Now, from an infrastructure perspective, from infrastructure point of view, we do have some very clear guidance and evidence of what works. Safer roads will help us save lives. And we have two specific targets as part of the global road safety performance targets that have been agreed by member states. It's target 3 and target 4. Target 3 refers to new roads and gives us as a target that by 2030 all new roads achieve technical standards for all the road users and are able to protect all road users. Target number 4 tells us it's referring more to existing roads and gives us as a target that by 2030 more than 75% of travel on existing roads should be safe travels for all road users. Meleki was making reference to the General Assembly resolution on road safety that has endorsed many of the conclusions and itself the declaration of that came out of the ministerial in Stockholm last February. And the key point is that we have now the SDG has been aligned. The road safety SDG has been aligned and with the target of reaching halving road deaths and serious injuries by 2030. A new decade is in fact coming, and we do have a very compelling case actually for compelling evidence that investing in road safety is a good investment. And you see that evidence displayed already in this slide. It's a piece of work that you'll be able to find on the Vaccine for Roads website, and you have the link at the bottom of my slide. We have the chance, by investing and delivering safer roads, we have the chance to save millions of lives worldwide. And if you look at what the return on investment is, we have a very compelling evidence.
Susanna, I will be thankful. I'll be thankful if you 1 minute maybe summarize. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks.
Quite difficult. Okay, I will go faster and probably take some questions during the question answer time. Within the United Nations Road Safety Collaboration Group that I have the pleasure to chair, the pillar number 2 on infrastructure, we have delivered the 10-step plan. It's a new framework that was launched, in fact, at the Stockholm Ministerial, and that we are piloting right now for the first time in Tanzania. To go faster, whoops. The 10-step plan, it's basically a framework to help governments achieve the target 3 and 4. And I won't have the time to enter into details of this, but 3 major steps. First of all is the gap analysis. We need to understand where the country stands, where the country is, and where are the gaps. The second one is really making sure that we build the capacity, both in terms of design standards, but in terms of also skills of and the last one is making sure that we upgrade roads to protect all road users. All those resources, the 10-step plan, plus all the work that UNRSC Project Group 2, Safer Roads and Mobility, has been producing are available on the GTKP. And you see the link here. I really invite you to look at those resources. There are plenty of resources that will be very helpful for all of you, independently of whether you are in upper or middle or low income country. Another very interesting piece of work and very useful, it's Streets for Pandemic Response and Recovery, produced by NACTO, that gives you on the right-hand side really handy information on how to design and to make sure that we reallocate space properly and safely within the cities. I want to conclude, Vael, with making the 2 recommendations here. We can have the best strategies and action plans ever, but if we don't have skilled people to deliver those, we will not be moving any further. And the other point is on the importance of data. You can see in our discussion, unless we have solid data that we can rely on and analyze, we will not be able to really tailor the right solutions. As IRF, we give our yearly contribution with the World Road Statistics. We've just delivered them the 2020 edition. Here's the website. I'll invite you to contact us and take a look. Yes, final slide. We have also modernized this year all our data collection, both process, but also the way we make data available, thanks to the support of the Total Foundation. We have just launched this global road data warehouse that helps you visualize and understand and analyze the data better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna, and I agree with you totally. Expert, skilled personnel, as well as availability of data, is very important to proceed further in improving road safety, and that's one of the reasons why developed countries could achieve more, and also high-income countries. However, low-income countries and middle-income countries, they face a lot of problems in providing those skilled personnel as securing needed data to really make informed decisions and informed strategies. Thank you. And we move now for the next presenter. The final presenter we have is Professor Gaitam Tiwari. Professor Gaitam Tiwari is the chair professor for the Transportation Research and Injury Prevention Program in IIT Delhi, and she is the co-chair of the Traffic Safety Analysis and Policy Special Interest Group in the World Conference in Transport Society. So, Professor Gaitam, the floor is yours. You can share your slide and start. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Weil. This is really a good opportunity to meet so many people all around the world. I'm going to share my screen now. And so while we've heard about, some data from Qatar, and then Susanna presented a very nice information on what's happening because of COVID-19, I am going to focus on pedestrians in road traffic crashes. And the reason I want to focus in this specific area is because our understanding is that COVID-19, in fact, if you look at history of any pandemics, we have had pandemics earlier also, the impact lasts perhaps for 2 to 3 years, sometimes even less. And then the trips and our behavior goes back to before pandemic situation. So therefore, this is the time it's extremely important to focus our attention on what is it that is preventing us from achieving all the targets that Mileki has talked about. And let me just recap quick some important trends. Most motorized countries have reported reduction in fatalities. That's what we heard from Mileki also. However, in low and middle income countries, we have not seen this trend. But interesting part from these countries also, which have reported reduction in overall fatalities, deaths of unprotected road users is decreasing at a slower rate than those of vehicle occupants. So this is important to note that even in countries where we have achieved reduction in deaths, the reduction in deaths of unprotected road users like pedestrian has not been to the same extent. And this with the data we get from Europe as well as from USA. So high-income countries have witnessed reduction in pedestrian trips. However, we also find that these are the places where pedestrian exposure has reduced because number of trips per pedestrian has reduced. So therefore, we have to question the effectiveness of known pedestrian safety strategies in these countries. And we have to really focus on what is it do we need to meet the future targets. Some more details, again, on the same issues. And we find that pedestrian and cyclists together accounted for 29% of the road traffic deaths in EU countries in 2016. And US also reported an average of 6,000 pedestrian fatalities in 16-17. But this proportion in US also increased slightly. Here is a quick look at what is happening between two road user groups. The vulnerable road users, which is pedestrian, bicyclists, and motorized two-wheelers. And remember that majority of the users as well as fatalities in low and middle income countries belong to this group. And that is what you see in this graph. So we countries like Thailand, this group, which includes motorized two-wheelers, bicycle, and pedestrian, constitutes 85%, but even in countries like USA, it is 30%. So this is the group where we have to really pay a lot of attention. Now, I will just recap a quick history behind pedestrian research, pedestrian safety research, and it really starts in 1899 when the first crash was witnessed in Paris exhibition grounds. And what I found fascinating in that description was that how much effort went into while the investigation was on. It was based on witness statements in court, and the focus was about driver training, behavior awareness to road users, and this is when the vehicle was designed only to go at a maximum speed of 13 kilometers per hour. And here is a famous painting which was inspired by that. So a quick recap, in 1950s, we started having some very significant empirical observational studies. And these studies were based on the premise that it was more important to understand the pedestrian characteristics and socioeconomic backgrounds rather than the pedestrian actions. For example, whether the pedestrians are following the traffic regulation or not. So these studies were seminal studies, and they established the methodology for conducting controlled and observational studies, which approach those of real life situations. And therefore, these studies really gave us some very important results. And early research questions we found in studies done by Professor Steiner Sandels from Sweden, which was again looking at children and pedestrian. And the question asked was, what happens if children are too immature to derive any benefits from the traffic instructions given to them? And the main conclusion of this study was that children below the age of approximately 10 years do not have sensory or cognitive ability to understand modern traffic. And many other studies followed this. Now we come to modern times, let's say 2000 onwards, and we find that we have many new methods of collecting very detailed data now. We have video cameras, we have Google APIs, we have Google Street Maps. We can track pedestrian movement using image processing. We've got micro simulation techniques, but have we really got additional new knowledge? So we find that overall data collection techniques have changed. Computational techniques and statistical methods have advanced. However, broad understanding of pedestrian behavior that was reported in very early studies have remained unchanged. And we do have some very important results. And results like in what we got, those studies which were done in high-income countries, and look at the similarity that we find in low and middle-income countries. In LMICs, unlike North America and Western Europe, pedestrians and motorcyclists' involvement in fatal crashes on rural highway is in fact higher than many other road users. Recent studies have reported pedestrians facing high risk near bus stops in many of low and middle income countries. And some new emerging patterns of pedestrian crashes which have not been reported in published studies include pedestrian fatalities on access control expressway in countries like India. Pedestrians are waiting along the shoulder of a high-speed road to board a bus. So we have learned a lot about speed control. We have also learned if there are additional walking distances to cross the road over, it is less appealing to pedestrians. So they avoid using foot over bridges. And how now I come to some really difficult issues when we start concluding this short presentation. And while we have a rich history of almost 50 to 60 years of detailed studies on pedestrian behavior, and several detailed studies have repeatedly highlighted the weaknesses of school education and training programs and human cognitive skills and capability of judging risk. Yet, 2004 EU report noted traffic and pedestrian education should be a part of school programs for children. So knowing that these things are not very effective, but we are not able to move away from that. In fact, WHO Manual on Pedestrian Safety also mentions changing the attitudes and behavior of drivers and pedestrians is a complex, long-term undertaking that requires a variety of interventions to be implemented. And it is commonly used to raise awareness and modify behavior alongside with other measures. Otherwise, these are not very effective. So now we come to future challenges, because we've heard all the targets that we are expected to meet in next coming decade. But are we really able to, will we be able to meet these targets will depend on whether we are able to produce new knowledge. Susanna talked about safer roads, but safer roads in many of these countries will only happen when we produce new knowledge to have a 3 to 4 star rating in these situations. New research is required to make cities safer for pedestrians. We will have to revisit current speed limits because we are going to have presence of elderly pedestrians. We will need lower speed limits and active measures to control speeds. There is a consensus on urban design principle which can result in higher mix, but we do not have consensus on higher mixed land use density, the condition already present in less motorized countries. So new research is required to get insights from these settings because this is where the numbers are still increasing. You see a glimpses of highways. These don't look like highways, but they have been designed like highways. So I end with this. I think, you know, this pedestrian accident that we started early on when there were hardly any accidents happening. And that still remains a challenge both in high income as well as low and middle income countries. And especially for low and middle income countries, we will have to invest a lot in producing new knowledge to design safer roads as well as safer vehicles. So I will stop here and maybe we can take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gita. Indeed, pedestrian issue is very, very important. And even in developed countries, the share of pedestrian facilities is growing and never going down. And I know some information in Tokyo or London, for example, where the share of pedestrian facilities reached to up to 40–45%.
Yeah.
Indeed, this is a very important, and maybe in the discussion session, we can address how the new decade of action can include pedestrian safety and how it should address pedestrian safety more. Before I move to the question and answers, I would like to thank all presenters in spite of the interruption we have. You know, all of you try to talk louder, and I'd like to thank you for all the efforts. But before we'll proceed, I would like to show the results of our poll that we had during the event today. And simply, we had three questions. The first question: roads became safer during COVID-19. Interestingly, I can't see the percentage, but maybe I can need to increase. Yes, 50% of the participants today who answered, almost 150 answered the poll, they said yes, there is an improvement in road safety. However, 30% disagree with this, while 20% they are neutral. In spite of the fact that numbers shows improvement, but this is a subjective assessment of road users. There is quite a good percentage they still cannot see the road are more safer. And also, if we move to the second question, where we ask about whether COVID-19 reduced the attention on road safety, we have almost 70% says yes, road safety is not anymore under the spot. And actually today I was reviewing some numbers and recent records of number of fatalities as well as number of deaths because of COVID-19. I think today it's around 1,007,000 fatality deaths, from the COVID-19 records. However, today also the numbers reach a 1,008,000 fatality on roads in this year. So we have fatality on our roads every year. It reached and it maybe exceed the number of COVID-19 pandemic. However, due to the current attention on the COVID-19, this issue of road safety it's not getting the enough or the sufficient attention, as the experts who answered the survey highlighted. At the last question, drivers' behavior has been improved during COVID-19. So whether really there is an improvement on driver behavior, actually 52% says no, while 26% says yes, and they agree. So it's very clear that I don't know why, but there's a clear direction towards that the behavior of drivers did not really improve, but more visibly we see a more risky or reckless or aggressive behavior on our roads. So by this interesting view of experts who joined this webinar today, I would like to move to build on these results and to move to the question and answer session and start with one simple question that really address the topic of this webinar. I would just like to ask our colleagues, can you share the first slide of the webinar, please? Okay. So the first question is, what is really the reason that behind the reduction on traffic of fatalities and crashes during COVID-19? And we can think about two theories. They can be together or one of them. First, we have really a change on the behavior. So probably people became more conscious about involving in crashes because they don't want to go to hospitals. Is really an impact on driver behavior, or it's simply an impact of reduction of traffic flow. Travel restrictions reduced number of vehicles sharply, which led to a significant reduction on traffic flow, and this leads to reduction on number of crashes and number of fatalities. So what is your thoughts about this? So we maybe direct this question to Brigadier Al-Malki, if he can give us his thoughts from Qatar experience, where we have a very significant reduction on crashes and fatalities.
Well, I believe, of course, the COVID-19 it's a global crisis, but I believe this is one of the reasons is Corona, and I believe most of countries, people are staying home, afraid of this virus. So February, March till June, people are afraid, and the behavior change. And I believe some countries, as I mentioned before, lockdown, pedestrian-less, young driver.
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe this is one of the reasons coronavirus has a big effect in reducing the number of accidents and fatalities. I can't hear you. You're gone.
Yes. Susanna, can you please also elaborate on this point?
She's gone.
Yes, can you hear me? Go ahead. I think, as I said, and you know personally how I'm reluctant to draw conclusions. We don't have sufficient data right now to really draw the conclusion, at least from what I've seen going disaggregated data. And I was fascinated by reading some of the comments in the chat, and somebody was saying, you know, in our country, the data just come once per year. So how do you assess? The other, for example, in the framework of the Sustainable Mobility for All, this initiative that rallies around the table major transport organizations from around the world, and which is led by the World Bank, we're currently conducting a pilot on South Africa. Same story. As soon as we were trying to get hold of data and to try and assess the impact that the lockdown had on the country and overall the pandemic, we had to face the problem that people who are in charge of collecting the data were actually in lockdown as well. They were not collecting the data. So it's a complex issue. And as I said in that slide, and you know, the preliminary data that were shared by the PIN report. Yeah, and we know that speeding is always a problem. But you know, from there to know exactly what is the correlation and the influence of what factor, I personally, now giving you as an opinion as a road user, the few times that I was able to go out after, well, here we had a soft lockdown, so you know, I would come to the office. I have seen people here in Switzerland driving like crazy. And this is a country where we have perfect infrastructure, law enforcement is very strict. So imagine what might have happened in other countries. People just felt that because the roads were empty, they were all speeding. And I remember very clearly one day just coming to the office, There was a car right behind the corner here, flipped upside down. So that tells you, you know, the type of speed at which that car was going.
Yes.
Speed is certainly one. I've heard other reports and research that were trying to dig more into the state of mind of people and how they're feeling. Lots of people lost their jobs. And you know, there's a lot of distraction that was going on for that. People had to, we have seen a spike, for example, of people having to go to mental support centers because of the pandemic. So under the effect of drugs, these are all things that we need research and data to dig into to understand better.
Yes, yes, indeed. I also think that, you know, from traffic engineering point of view, usually when we have a direct reduction in flow, simply number of crashes reduce, and that's a direct studied relation. But we usually, when the traffic flow reduce and the density on roads reduce, more severe crashes occur, more traffic violations occur because of higher freedom and on the roads. But again, this has to be validated, especially for the COVID-19, to really draw conclusions that are reliable and can help to develop policies for any future pandemic. Now, if you allow me, I would like to move to Dr. Meliski and ask him a question about the new decade of actions. What is different? What is new on this new decade of action? You clearly mentioned that we could not reach the absolute numbers targets of the previous 10 years of decade of action. So what is the new? What is how the new decade of action answers the shortcomings, the challenges have been faced in the last 10 years?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Wael. We should look at the achievements or the foundational work that was laid during the first decade of action. I think it's quite important to indeed appreciate the process. We know from experience, from history and from other areas that change is iterative and it takes time, it takes effort. We learn, we do and learn. So I see the second decade as providing that opportunity to reflect on the foundational work that had been laid for countries to look deeply at the strategies they used, the programs they put in place, and figure out what can they do better. The plan is not yet developed. It's just been announced a couple of weeks ago. And so it's fresh, is quite just at the beginning. And I think this is why I feel that we have an opportunity to reflect. If we think of it as owning, as a moment to reflect and improve, more or less what we've shared by other panelists. So the difference would be if we could do much more or we can do much better on various issues. So it requires some more assessment of what did we not do well. And that I think this needs to go to the micro level, to a country, to a city, to a province, to institutions. And how can we move forward? So I see it as an opportunity to reflect and be more strategic, more opportunistic, more integrated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me now ask about moving on a different, little bit, very similar along, but a different topic, which is regarding pedestrians. And I would like to ask Professor Gitam, you know, pedestrian safety is a very critical issue, especially talking about pedestrians. And their illegal behavior and their behavior along our roads depends a lot on the culture, on habits, which usually difficult to be addressed. So how do you think we can improve road safety? What kind of really innovative measures, policies to be implemented? Because there is a lot of attention being given, but no much result being achieved.
Yeah, I think you've asked a very important question. And as I said, if we are planning to meet any target, we have to focus attention on pedestrians. And actually, the main thing that is required is that we have to keep pedestrian in the center when we do our city planning, when we do our road standards, we do our street design, and including our highways. Because low and middle income countries, even on highways, pedestrians are present. And one issue that you raised, that the behavior depends on culture and habit, actually, I'm not sure of that at all. Because if you look at all these seminal studies which were done in 50s and 60s, and some of these studies that I mentioned, it shows very clearly that pedestrian behavior is actually a response of the kind of infrastructure that they have been asked to move in. If we keep designing our highways, high-speed highways, and you have villages on both sides, what can pedestrian do? It's the wrong environment that the engineers have designed. So I think the decade of safety too really depends on how we understand pedestrian and how we design our cities, how we design our roads, and how we design our vehicles, keeping pedestrian in mind. And this very well goes with, all your principles of Vision Zero and systems approach. Because one of the basic things, fundamental things which have been accepted there is that as people, we are likely to make mistakes, and also we are vulnerable and frail. We cannot withstand impacts, energy beyond certain limit. So we have to relook at a lot of safety standards that we have had some success in previous decades. We have to relook at it and then see how it's going to pan out, especially in low and middle income countries, but perhaps it's required everywhere.
I think you addressed a very important point, that road infrastructure has to really provide and accommodate pedestrians so that we can implement further policies to improve pedestrian safety. Without having a road infrastructure that provide pedestrians the opportunity to use the roads equally to other road users safely, similar to other road users, will be very difficult to proceed. For that, do you think that we need really internationally a new ideas, new perspective in urban planning on designing our cities to be more safe, to be more livable and walkable?
Yeah, definitely. Because we find that, let me take example of IRF, not IRF, IRAP ratings of roads. And one of the targets we have set this, what percentage of roads should have at least star 3. But even in that, to improve, get higher rating, star rating for pedestrian safety, we don't have enough knowledge about that. A very simple example is wider shoulders give you better star rating when it's a motorized traffic. That is not true in places where you have pedestrians and other vehicles present on the road, because the speeds increase and there are pedestrians present, so now they are exposed to higher speed. So quickly to summarize this issue, what you are new, we need to invest in methods of producing and collaborating with each other to produce new understanding that how do we design and manage our highways traffic when pedestrians are present there, and how do we design our vehicles. Of course, we have now discussion about pedestrian impact standard, but we have to relook at many of these things, that when the number of pedestrians, and imagine when you're going to have more and more autonomous vehicles in future, what is the pedestrian safety going to be in that situation? So all these new aspects have to be really explored in detail.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Gitam. And please allow me to move to Brigadier Al-Malki also. I have a question about, you mentioned in your slide that one of the most common threats to road safety in Qatar is distraction, either using mobile or any in-vehicle technology, as well as seat belts. And this is one of the main issues in road safety. How Qatar is planning to address this? And is there any policies or measures to be implemented in order to reduce such kind of violations?
No, this has been controlled, a long time. Of course, our law enforcement and the traffic department is doing really, and the awareness campaign, public relations. Most of our stakeholder also and their action plan is now. I think really people are you can see in the streets, especially in Doha. But as I mentioned, people who are not really sticking with young drivers, and this when they go out, for showing in their cars and this. But I believe now the number of serious injuries being reduced because people are using really safety belt, and also you can say that's why we compare passengers. Mainly, like many people dying in one car. So now this number been reduced, not because Corona, but it's even before. That's why number become low. But I believe enforcement is very important. Second, education. It's been now among young, and also education among pedestrian also is very important. So because if you have 60 or 70% of your fatalities from these two groups, so you have to concentrate, especially we concentrated really in the first phase of our national strategy in these two groups. And that's why we are reaching almost, I hope by 2022, we are reaching 50% of what, since we started the national strategy.
Thank you. So following the same point, as you emphasized the safety, Dr. Milski, is there any new policies to be implemented addressing pedestrian safety in the new decade of actions? Is there any specific programs to be developed targeting low-income, middle-income countries?
Okay, I'll respond. I hope I'm trying to start my video. The reality, I think, as most presenters are pointing out, knowledge does exist. We have road design, we have law enforcement, we have issues to do with awareness raising, etc. Vehicle standards. So the key, very critical measures exist. We have a document. This has been written in road safety. We call it Save Lives. It has summarized a number of key measures, 22 key measures. I worked on this. I was among those who prepared this very rich resource. So what the knowledge, the interventions do exist. I do acknowledge what Gitam is pointing out, that we definitely require new, better knowledge or analysis of the context and reality. What we need to really work a lot on is to get this into practice at the national and the local level, to continuously innovate, to continuously explore, learn from what we've done, go back and improve as we continue to generate new knowledge and generate any practices. So the solutions are there. They have been documented very extensively. And I think during the decade, one of the outcomes has been quite substantial knowledge generation. And I think there's a lot of material. Just look at the various documents, what you've shared even on this seminar, some of the materials that Susanna was sharing are examples of the knowledge that has been synthesized. The question is, how do we utilize it? The other question we may have to figure out, what of the local generated knowledge, the experience we are learning from Qatar? How can this be shared and inform other countries, what we've just shared this morning or this afternoon? I wish that experience would also go into recent and an update of the material we have so that we can get these experiences. So I think we need to combine the overall synthesis with real life experiences of what is coming from the local and the national level. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Indeed. And I think Brigadier Malki is here. Qatar is always open to share their experience. And this is actually one of the responsibilities that Qatar took, big role, to transfer the experience inside Qatar to other developing and developed countries. Brigadier Malki, do you want to give a comment on that?
Of course, we are ready here, and of course we can share our national strategy to anyone who would like, to use it, or can, we can give our also any help in this matter, using our strategy or any other help with any other traffic safety help. Maybe in the future we can do better than this strategy,
Yes, actually, thank you. I'm receiving a lot of questions, but let me now, because we exceeded 10 minutes almost the time of the webinar, we had a discussion, but let me ask a final question, which is maybe for all of you. What kind of opportunity we can see through this difficult period during the COVID-19 pandemic? During this COVID-19 pandemic,
we can't hear you very well. Your microphone is
okay.
Because you're moving your hand somewhere.
Now is it better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, so my final question is: during this COVID-19 period, what kind of lessons we can learn? During this period, traffic flow reduced. Simply, people give up some of their trips and either stayed home or they did it by other means than the vehicular traffic. So this reduction in vehicular traffic resulted clearly in majority of the countries, except some countries, as Susanna reported, on a very significant reduction of number of crashes, of number of fatalities. Does this mean that if we maintain this reduction in traffic flow, if we encourage people to use public transport, if we maintain shifting these trips that have been not performed and make sure that it will be done by public transport, we can maintain this reduction on traffic fatalities and this reduction on number of crashes. Is this an insight that we need really all to think that public transport is a major role that we all should really strongly emphasize on? So maybe, Susanna, you can start first, since your camera is, yes.
A $1 million question. I think what I would say is that we need to learn to be open to change. And this is something that from the experience that I have now with IRF, as a sector, we're not that always open for change. The engineers have their own standards and we want to do things as we have been taught to do them. And we need to try to be a little bit more open to change and offer to road users safe journeys, but also the opportunity to test new things. The answer is always that it's very difficult to take people out of the car because they don't like this and that. But I guess the first point is offering them suitable options, right? Public transport is definitely one of those. I can testimony here in Geneva. We have fantastic public transport. I don't drive in Geneva at all. I don't need it. Now, COVID puts, of course, another challenge in front of us, especially for public transport people that have been tremendously suffering. But we know what works, even in terms of prevention, both of the road safety pandemic and of the COVID. So if we respect the rules, we are able to move forward in that respect. The other point that I want to make, it's again, we really have compelling evidence, as I said during the presentation, that delivering on the safe system approach that we all know helps us deliver other benefits. Delivering a safe system means not only saving millions of lives, but means also fighting climate change, making sure that people have better health and a better quality of life. So we need that mind shift. And as I said during the presentation, we need to make sure, and I couldn't agree more with what Meleki and Professor Tiwari was saying, contextualize. Yes, we do have plenty of things that we know, we have plenty of tools. We need to see how they work in a given certain social context as well. So we need to contextualize, make sure we put people back at the center. And the last point that I want to say here, with the 10 step that I presented, what we are trying is not only to offer like a structured approach on how you can reach those target 3 and 4, but also trying to promote local ownership, in fact. We don't have time today to respond to plenty of the comments and questions that I've been seeing, but know that we hosted a UNRSC webinar, I think on all the proceedings are available on IRF website. They were also mentioned in my slide, and also on IRAP website. I encourage you to take a look at those, because you will find we have compiled also all the questions and answers that were posed during the webinar. And many of you will find answers to the comments and questions that I'm seeing in the chat and Q&A section right here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Gitan, do you like to also comment on the same issue? What kind of opportunities we can see during this period?
I'm not sure about the opportunities, because as I understand, COVID-19, one of the major impact is on economy. And we have a lot of information from other historical trends. Every time there is an economic downtrend, it leads to less number of crashes because people are not traveling as much. They don't have, their purchasing power goes down, so they don't end up buying a lot of cars or motorized modes. But I think one of the special things about COVID-19 is something that Susanna also mentioned. The number of overall crashes may have reduced, and your question about public transport, in fact, public transport has been a major sufferer. Because of fear of infection, a lot of people are not using public transport in places where public transport continued to work even during pandemic. But in countries like India, we completely shut down our public transport. So even few people who had to move, they had to look for other options. Either, then the number of motorized two-wheelers end up increasing, which has much higher risk. So some of these things we have to understand. An opportunity, I'm not sure, because, I have looked at 2-3 other pandemic history, and every time it shows that within 6 months to 1 year, the travel trend goes back to your previous. So my approach would be, let's wait and watch. Let's see what happens, as we still very much in the pandemic. As we start coming out of it, what happens, we have to wait and watch and see.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for your comments. I think we reached the end today. There is a lot of questions, but unfortunately we cannot address all of them. We already exceeded the time of the webinar. At the end, I just want to say that all the world now is busy on finding a vaccine for the COVID-19. And I hope that within the next few months, 6 months to 1 year, we will close the chapter of this pandemic. And I hope the world will work on a vaccine for road crashes so that we can also save our lives and save many lives as possible on roads. It's a long fight and an important fight that all of us have to be enrolled in it. At the end, before I close this webinar, I would like to thank all our distinguished presenters. Brigadier Al-Malki, we thank you very much for your time. You are so busy always, and we really highly appreciate devoting your time to participate with us today. Dr. Meleski, Khaisi, thank you. And we really would like to involve more with WHO, with our events, and to listen more from a global perspectives. Thank you very much. Susanna, thank you. Words cannot thank you too much. You always supporting our collaboration with Qatar University. We will always work together, and we will always try to develop such kind of webinars and provide more information about what's been happening worldwide. Thank you. And at the end, Professor Gitam, thank you for your time. India is a very important role in road safety. We know that the share of India in number of fatalities is quite high, and we really would like to work together in order to learn from the experiences you have and also transfer the experiences we have and to share information. At the end of this webinar, please allow me to just announce for all audience the next events we will have. And actually, I'm sharing not the correct slides. Yes, please, can you? We have a technical webinar that will be a kind of workshop, online workshop that will be conducted on November in collaboration with IRF and WCTRS on road safety management. And that event will be through 3 days, almost a 1.5 hours session per day on November from 8th to 10th of November. We will have a group of distinguished presenters, also experts on road safety management and road safety audits from the United Nations Department of Projects. And this will be a free event. And as soon as we fix all the logistics in terms of the platform for the event, we will announce the event and we will send it the links for registration for all participants. So all of you who participate in this event, you will receive the information of this technical workshop. We really hope that if time allows you to join us, all of us, on this event. Thank you again. Thank you for our presenters. Thank you all, and wish you a good evening or a good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And we hope to see you again in future events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.